Let me start out by saying I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin has changed my life forever, and I wouldn't be where I am today without it. However, I do think that a lot of people are forgetting where we are in this bear market cycle, and in today's video, I'd like to talk about it. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So if we take a look at Bitcoin today, you can see that we're currently sitting just above $73,000. Now, I'll be going from the higher time frame down to the lower time frames, so make sure to watch the entire video because we'll talk about potential support and resistance zones where the price can potentially react. So if you're new to the channel, this is where I plan on accumulating Bitcoin in the long term over the course of this year. So what you'll notice is that as Bitcoin drops, I start accumulating more aggressively. Before we continue the video, remember that nothing that I discuss on the channel should be construed as financial advice. I'm just a guy on the internet sharing all of his own personal trades and his overall market analysis. Now, taking a look at this, you can see that I do believe Bitcoin will be dropping below $60,000. I've talked about this at length, and currently we are in another relief rally phase of this bear market. The lower we go, the more that I will personally buy. Now, some of you might be thinking that dropping below $50,000 is just unimaginable for Bitcoin. But believe me, I've been in these cycles. I've experienced it. Right when you don't think we can drop, we drop much further. And I do think that this can occur over the course of the year. Now, to give you full transparency, I still hold Bitcoin from below $30,000 that I accumulated in the last bear market, where I started my accumulation phase below $20,000. So I'm holding some Bitcoin and I'm planning on buying more as we potentially head lower. At this point in time, you can see that Bitcoin is currently just down around 40% from the all-time highs. Although when we dropped down to around $59,000, $60,000, it was just over a 52% drop. Historically, Bitcoin drops a lot more than this in the bear market, but we do get bear market relief rallies. Now, if you're not new to the channel and you've been watching me, you know exactly what I'm discussing right now, and we'll get into the technicals shortly, but please bear with me here because I want to explain this to everyone. In the bear markets, Bitcoin tends to always go below two key levels, and those levels are the Bitcoin realized price and the Bitcoin balance price. As you can see on this chart here, Bitcoin is currently above these two lines. The green line is the Bitcoin realized price, and the orange line is the Bitcoin balanced price. Every single bear market, we've dropped below these levels only to move much higher in the next bull market. So if you're paying attention here, you probably have one question, and that question is, well, Bitcoin didn't go all the way up to this red line this cycle, which is the Bitcoin terminal price. You can see that in all of the previous cycles, we went all the way up to the top of this red line, got rejected after creating that all-time high, and then fell into a bear market. So because of this, does that mean we have to drop below these levels? And the answer is, honestly, no, we do not have to, which is why I am starting my Bitcoin accumulation below $60,000. So while I do firmly believe we will be going below 60K over the course of this year, I want some more exposure to Bitcoin in the long term. So I hope that makes sense. It doesn't mean that we have to drop all the way down to below $40,000 because as you saw, we didn't reach that red line, this terminal price, this cycle. We also have institutions involved. I see a lot of people that are either way too bullish or way too bearish. My base case is still the same in the fact that Bitcoin will be going below $60,000, but I will not shy away from accumulation as we continue to head lower. Now that we got that out of the way, I want to take you through some trades because I've been trading this market in the bear market and also in the bull market and making money either way. In a bear market, it makes sense to look for swing shorting opportunities. In a bull market, it makes sense to look for swing longing opportunities. So while I do have my spot portfolio that I hold, I also actively trade the market, and we caught an absolutely phenomenal move on an altcoin. And that altcoin, which seemed to be everyone's favorite altcoin in this bear market, is called Tau. I entered a massive short on Tau, and this was, of course, shared in my community. I will trade the market as it comes as I look for my long-term spot entries on Bitcoin. So at this point in time, you can see that I'm currently shorting Bitcoin with my average entry at around $80,000, but I do take profits on the way down. Now, Tau was a very, very interesting one that I want to discuss briefly in today's video as well. So you'll notice on Twitter, if you're familiar with crypto Twitter, a lot of people have been talking about how Tau is extremely bullish. It's the only altcoin that's holding up in this bear market, etc. The AI narrative, you've heard all of it. Now, we just got news that one of the founders was supposedly selling some tokens after some kind of argument. I won't get into all of the details, but that doesn't matter because structurally it was always going to dump from around the levels that we're seeing now. So yesterday we had a pretty big move to the downside, and a lot of people will be saying, well, no, look at this structure. It's extremely bullish. That's the 4-hour time frame. Yes, of course, we tapped into a pivotal support zone down here below $200, and then we got to move up. Great. But how does it look like on the weekly time frame? If you ask me, this is just another lower high. As you can see here, we've created a high right around here, all the way above $700, then another one here, now another one here. Now you can include this as a potential higher one, but we just swept some liquidity and ultimately moved lower to create a lower low compared to down here. So what we need to consider in this bear market is that swing shorting opportunities are the best ones. I still firmly believe that the market is headed lower, even though we are currently above $70,000. That might be hard for you to believe, but I'm just sharing with you how I am personally navigating this market. And one of the reasons why I entered this trade is not only because of this structure, but also if you've been on the channel for quite some time, you know that I absolutely love shorting altcoins. Now, Tau had an exceptionally high valuation, and I started seeing a lot of people start shilling it on crypto Twitter. And I shared this in my premium group not too long ago when Tau was above $330. Most of you are familiar with my higher time frame bias at this point. The probabilities, in my view, continue to favor Bitcoin moving lower over the course of this year. With that context in mind, I want to flag something that I am watching closely. During the bull market, one of my better performing strategies was shorting overvalued altcoins. Some of those were memes and low quality projects, but some were assets that the market considered to have utility. An example of this would be Zcash, which has actually already dropped over 60% from the highs. Now, as I'm recording this video, Zcash got a little bit of a move to the upside, but again, the structure is still bearish. Right now, Tau is up over 90% in the past month. It is sitting at $7 billion in FDV, and in my opinion, that premium is difficult to justify if we get a broader market move that I am anticipating. If Bitcoin sees a higher time frame drop to sub 60K, which I still think is likely, but Tau has already dropped, well, something like Tau could realistically give back 50% or more. In a deeper bear market, I think the drawdown could be much more significant, similar to what we saw with Zcash. I have not personally entered any position yet. Now, this was a while ago. I shared my entry in my group, and I'm simply sharing this because it's something that I am monitoring and I have a high level of interest in. Just wanted you to be aware, and again, talking about how I like shorting altcoins. So look, this cycle has been absolutely horrible for altcoins. Bitcoin is the king, and I think it's really proven itself this cycle because if you just held Bitcoin throughout the entire cycle, you would have largely outperformed the majority of the market from a spot portfolio perspective because it gave you the upside and it minimized your downside risk. I have made more money in the last bull market shorting altcoins than I have actually longing. So this is something I want you to consider. A lot of people got very excited about alts this cycle because they came into crypto and they heard, hey, this is the generational opportunity. Why would I have any money in Bitcoin when I can just buy some altcoins and we're going to get these 10, 100x? You've heard all of the guys like Alex Becker promise these altcoin seasons. Meanwhile, we get pumps with altcoins even in the bear market, but what we get is just another lower high. So I need you to consider that from a higher time frame analysis. Now, I know I kind of went off there talking about Tau, talking about what I shared in my group. And by the way, if you want access to my Telegram community where I share all of my own personal trades and my overall thesis in this market, how I'm currently trading it, well, you do have the first link in my description down below. If you DM me the keyword CBM on Telegram, you'll be able to join my group where I share all of these trades that you're seeing here. My Tau position is currently up around $180,000, and I've already secured just under 50K on this trade. This is lining up to be one of my best trades yet. Look, Bitcoin will do what it wants to do at this point in time, but I need you to consider that we are at the top of the range, and I still firmly believe that we will be dropping lower. Can we get a rally? Is probably the lower time frame question that some of you have, because over my past few videos, I've talked about where we could potentially get rejected. And here's the thing. When Bitcoin swept the value area low here, we talked about it in my premium group that it could be a very strong longing opportunity. Obviously, when you identify these opportunities, you don't know how high it can really go. But I still firmly believe that this is a bear market relief rally. So I'm still shorting Bitcoin from higher. Now, of course, I'm shorting Tau, but I need you to understand that until we can actually reclaim up here these tariff capitulation lows, maybe we get a sweep as high as above $76,000. I don't actually know. No one has a crystal ball, and I am perfectly okay with admitting that. I just continue to trade the market that's right in front of me. This is going to be very interesting. You see these two lines up here? This is what we call the bull market support band in a bull market. However, it tends to act as resistance in a bear market. So I'm just going to go here and zoom out on the daily time frame, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This was initially where I entered my first Bitcoin short below $100,000. If you've been watching the channel, you know that I also entered another short at around $123,000 and fully closed that position, but this is still an existing trade where I added to my position, betting on a move to the downside. So if Bitcoin, and I'll say this on a weekly time frame basis, just so you know where I stand in the market, if Bitcoin can go all the way up to this bull market support band up here, which is made up of simple and exponential moving averages, and break above there, hold it above on a weekly time frame candle closing basis, that would suggest that maybe we get even more of a relief rally in this bear market, which would be absolutely horrible for both bulls and bears, because the bulls would think we're so back, and I do ultimately think that we would essentially just resort lower. However, until we can reclaim the tariff capitulation lows, I'm not confident in saying that we're even going to get close to there, because I'm seeing a lot of calls for 80K plus. I don't believe that to be true until we can actually reclaim some very important levels up here, because we have tapped into some pretty significant liquidity at this point in time. So what is next for Bitcoin here? Until we can actually confirm above the top of this existing range, I'm not willing to say that we're going to get a more significant move to the upside. However, on the higher time frames, I still firmly believe that what's happening is we're building some downside liquidity before Bitcoin likely rolls over into my long-term accumulation zone. So that's a whole spiel about long-term Bitcoin, my plans, how I'm trading the market, shorting altcoins. Now let's get into the news that just came out today. March CPI inflation rose to 3.3%, which is actually below the expectation of 3.4%, and core CPI also rose. Now, CPI inflation is up to its highest level since May of 2024 amid the Iran war. The Fed rate cuts have been priced out now for 2026. Let's take a look at the liquidation heat map. On the 90-day time frame, there's technically more cumulative long liquidation leverage in the market compared to cumulative short liquidation leverage in the market. Then, if we take a look at this map, there is some liquidity to the upside. Maybe I'll refresh it on the 24-hour time frame. You'll notice that there is a little bit of liquidity, but let's take a look at the 2-week time frame to really get a clearer picture. Now, if I move the liquidity threshold down to around 0.5, so you get a clear view here, you'll notice that right above the current levels, there is still some liquidity piled up. So it's not impossible for us to get another little move to the upside, grabbing this liquidity, and then ultimately come back down as more and more people start entering longs. And as we wrap up this video, just a quick note on the potential war escalations. Iranian officials have arrived in Pakistan ahead of peace talks with JD Vance, so that has been confirmed. However, Iran did say that the talks will begin if preconditions are accepted, and President Trump came out today and said that he believes reopening the Strait of Hormuz is unlikely anytime soon. Meanwhile, markets are still crawling on up. So we'll have to see what comes out of this. In my opinion, of course, I still think that we get sharper drawdown, and I do think it makes sense to exercise a little bit of caution at the top of our existing range. Please remember that we are still in a bear market. The whole point of my channel is to not only show you my trades and how I'm operating in the market, but to also make sure that you have a clear and level-headed view of the market. Because I've seen a lot of people get excited with these kinds of rallies in a bear market, and then they pile into longs, they start buying a ton of altcoins, and then we end up dropping further as we typically see weakness into the summer. So let's see how the price action develops. And on that note as well, do you remember how many people were excited when Bitcoin was looking like it was going to rally back above $100,000 only to get rejected? The thing with bear markets is that you can get some nice moves to the upside, but when the rejection happens, it happens fast. And as we wrap up a little bit of a longer video today, you can see that Michael Saylor is buying a shit ton of Bitcoin, and he seems to be the only one that's really buying at these levels. Because his stretch product is currently above this rate here, normally if it's below 100, they're not able to buy more Bitcoin, but because it is above 100 here, you can see that today it is estimated that he bought over 3,400 Bitcoins. That is absolutely insane. And at this rate, he's going to be owning more Bitcoin than BlackRock. So let's see how this pans out. I still think that ultimately this is a Ponzi in the long term, but for now, it seems to be working, and it's giving him enough capital to continuously buy more Bitcoin. And the last thing, there's currently a 20% chance on Kalshi that Bitcoin hits $80,000 this month. So some of you that have been saying the bull market is back, maybe you go ahead and bet on this. Not financial advice, of course. I'm not going to be betting on something like this. I still firmly believe that Bitcoin is to be headed lower over the course of this year, and I will benefit as the price drops lower, as I am still currently in my short positions across the market. But I still hold some spots. And that sums up today's quick video. We talked about the fact that I think Bitcoin will be going lower over the course of this year, but I also entered a brand new short position, which was shared in my group. Now, I firmly believe that we will have better opportunities to buy Bitcoin. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just sharing with you what I am personally doing in this market. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. As always, I have my bluffing leverage trading tutorial right here, and I'll see you in the next video.